Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Amin ya rabbal alamin. Assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope all of you are doing great. Today inshallah we are going to review all the fragments that we have done in section B. Okay, so without further ado, let's get on with our revision. Now, there were 7 phrases or subordinate clauses or fragments that we studied in section C. They were jar majroor, the prepositional phrases. Okay, so we have your harf jar, the preposition, and then following that is an ism which is in jar form, jar majroor fragment. Then we studied the harf nasab with ismuha. Alright, so there were inna, annaka, anna, layta, lakinna, la, Allah. They are the huruf that cause their ism to be in nasab form. Alright, now this is not the official name, as I told you before. Harf nasab is not their official name. Their official name is inna wa ikhwatuha. Alright, so inna and its sisters. Alright, or asma mushabba bil fi'l, mushabba bil fi'l. So the words that resemble the fail because they cause their ism to be in maf'ul form, in nasab form. Okay, so these were your nasab, haruf and nasab. Alright, after that we studied the musaf, musaf ilayh, the possessive fragments. For example, book of Allah. Alright, and here we had a couple of important points to bear in mind while making and identifying them. Alright, after that we studied the mawsuf and sifa fragment, which is your adjectival clauses. Okay, for example, a good boy, that is your mawsuf sifa. Alright, after this we studied the haruf nida and the munada. Haruf nida is a harf with which we can call out to someone. Okay, and the one who is being called out to is called munada. This is what we studied. Next we studied the ism ishara and musharun ilayh. For example, this book or those boys. Alright, so ism ishara and musharun ilayh, this is what we studied. And finally we ended this section with the ism mawsul and its sila. Now we still have to touch on this mawsul and sila thing in the next section inshallah. And these were the allazi, allazina, allati words. Okay, we will be discussing them, or rather we will be reviewing them once again in this very lesson. Alright, so let's review our phrases. Okay, first of all we have our jar majroor fragments. As you can see, there are prepositions fi, ila, min, an, ala, hatta. You can pause the screen and study the examples along with their meanings so that it gets fresh in your mind. Alright, and then we will proceed to the remaining prepositions. Alright, these are the remaining prepositions: ma'a, li, ta, wa, ka, and bi. Alright, now the thing that I would want you to recall is that there are 3 haruf for taking an oath. Alright, however, the harf of ta can be used only with Allah. Okay, so you cannot use this harf ta for taking an oath by anything other than Allah. Alright, so this ta is kind of reserved only for an oath by Allah. Alright, so that's what. So you can only say tallahi. Right, and no other majroor ism can come with it. Okay, that's what you need to remember. However, this restriction does not hold true for wa and bi. So you can use any ism for taking an oath when it comes to wa and bi. Okay, so this is what you need to remember. Just remember, ta is only for an oath by Allah, and wa is be something that can be used for other oaths as well. Okay, and then of course ka means like or similar to, and bi is it has multiple meanings, and the most common ones have been mentioned here. Okay, study these examples, pause the screen, and then we will proceed. Alright, next we studied the harf nasab, or rather haruf nasab, and this is a beautiful summary of it. Alright, let me walk you through it. First of all, about its name. Inna wa ikhwatuha. Inna and its sisters. Okay, but I like to call them Herf Nasib, because this name gives their action or their function away. It tells us what it do. So what do we have in Herf Nasib? We have inna, anna ka anna, laita, lakinna, la Allah. Okay, inna means indeed, anna means that. Now this that is not the pointing that. Okay, for example, if I say that book, here the dat which is used is not equal to this anna dat. Okay, anna doesn't mean that pointing dat. It is the dat that we use for connecting. Okay, so for example, if I say I told you that I completed my homework, so the dat I used in this sentence is this anna dat. Okay, so just remember this. All right, then we have ka anna. Ka anna means as though or as if. And then we have laita. Laita means if only. Lakinna means but or however. La Allah means so that, or maybe. Okay, so these were your meanings. Okay, after that, let's come to what they do. First of all, we have this definition that they cause their ism in nasab form. Okay, so you have your inna, or technically any harf out of these six. Okay, and then when you connect or you add them, or you make a fragment with some other ism, which for example here is al-insanu, as you can see rafa. Okay, and once this in or any of these haruf gets added to them, it becomes innal insana. Okay, similarly innallaha, you will never find innallahu anywhere, or innallahi anywhere. Okay, it's a huge blunder in the grammar world. Okay, so it's always going to be innallaha and so on and so forth. Innal insana, for example. Okay, that's the first point. What's the second one? The second one is that this harf nasab and its ism, they kind of form a combo. Okay, like here innal insana, it's like a combo, and this combo is always preceded with a with an auxiliary verb, with a helping verb. Okay, what are auxiliary verbs? I've already told you before that these are the helping verbs that we need for the present, for the completion of a sentence. All right, so they include words such as is, are, was, will be, all right, am, were, etc. All of these are helping verbs, and we require them for making a sentence in English. That's why we need to imagine this auxiliary verb right after this combo. Okay, all right, after this point, so all right, you're always going to translate this thing as indeed the mankind is. All right, that the mankind is, as though the mankind is, if only the mankind were. Now this is actually the difference in English grammar, that's why I used were. Then however the mankind is or was, all right, whatever. All right, you get the idea. All right, next point is that it has light variance. The haruf that end with noon and tashdid can be converted to their light variance. What do I mean by light variance? I simply mean that the tashdid can be replaced with a sukoon, as you can see here, 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 here. Okay, and this is something that we're going to touch on in the fail section. All right, so there's no need discussing it here. Okay, then our second last point is that most often you are going to find the harf and its ism right next to each other, like this, innal insana. However, there may be some instances where the mansub ism is going to be further down the line, and some word or phrase or harf may come in between this harf inna and the ism mansub. Okay, so that's why I have denoted this with xyz. So the harf and its ism may be together right next to each other, all right, or there could be some other word or words between these two. Okay, all right, and then the final point, this is called ma. Now this is a harf that acts as a shield for the ism. So what do I mean by that? I said that it's innal insana. All right, we all know that by now. But it, if I add this ma to the herf, whether it be inna, anna, kanna, whatever, if I add this ma to these herf, to this herf, all right, then the ism, the mansoob ism, reverts to its rafa form. All right, so it was originally innal a'mala, but since I've added ma over here, it becomes innamal a'malu. All right, and why do we do that? We do it to add more emphasis to this statement. Okay, and we'll be touching on this subject in some detail in section C, when we'll be studying different kinds of stresses that we can give to a sentence. Okay, so remember this point for now. All right, so these were our haruf nasab. Okay, then we studied musaf musafile, the the possessive fragments. Okay, what did we study in it? We first studied that what a musaf was. Musaf was the possessed ism, all right, or you could say that the ism that comes before of. Okay, and musaf ilayh is the possessor, or you could say that it is the ism that comes after of, or it is the ism that has the apostrophe s on it. Okay, for example, Allah's book. So over here the word Allah has apostrophe s on it, so therefore we can call it musaf ilayh. It's the possessor. Okay, all right, so what did we study about these musaf and musaf ilayhs? We studied that musaf ilayh is always going to be in jar form. All right, so our first reason for an ism to be in jar form was that it's going to follow a harf jar. All right, making a jar majroor fragment. And our second reason is that it is a mudaf ilayh, okay, possessor of something. And the example here is kitabu zaidin. Okay, and as you can see, I have mentioned it here. This little apostrophe s is like it's telling you, just as in English you can tell that possessor is the one that has this apostrophe s. Similarly, the ism that is in jar, all right, is going to be a musafile, and this is similar to having an apostrophe s. All right, that's what. All right, then we are going to focus on our musaf. What's a musaf? Musaf is the ism that comes first in this combo, in this fragment. Okay, so you have your musafile fragment. So just as the name indicates, it's going to come first. What's going to come first? Musaf. Okay, so musaf is going to come first, followed immediately by musafile. Okay, all right, that's the first point. Secondly, it can be of any Arab. Our musaf ilayh always has to be of jar form, jar Arab, all right, but our musaf can be of rafa, nasab, as well as jar, as you can see from here. All right, okay. Next, it has to be without al. It can't ever be prefixed with al and be a musaf. Nope, never ever. Okay, so it has to be al kitab. I'm sorry, it has to be without al, so it has to be kitab. All right, and finally, we can see that it has to be light. By light, what do I mean? I mean that there should be no ending na sound. Okay, so we are used to seeing singular words as kitabun, kitaban, kitabin, baitun, baitan, baitin. All right. Similarly, muslimatun, muslimatin, muslimatin. All right. So you see the ending na sound when we are dealing with tanween. This is not going to be there if you're making a musaf. Okay, similarly in the suffixes that we studied for musanna and for jama salim, all right, they are ending on the na sound. For example, muslimuna, muslimina, all right, they're ending on na. So there shouldn't be any na sound when you're making an ism light. All right, that's what I've explained here. So if you have an ism that ends with tanween, all right, you replace that tanween with a single harakat. Kitabun becomes kitabu, muslimatun becomes muslimatu, muslimatun becomes muslimatu. No ending na sound. All right. Similarly, if you have a suffix, for example, kitabani or kitabaini or muslimuna or muslimina, all of these are ending with noon. So you just remove this noon, all right, and it becomes your light ism. Kitaba, kitabai, muslimu, muslimin, so on and so forth. All right. So what are the two ultimate criteria for your muzaf? That it has to be without al and it has to be light. That means no ending na sound. Okay. All right. Now for the tip. Just as your muzaf ilayh has an apostrophe s with it, the Musaf has an imaginary little off right next to it. Okay, so that's how you can always say it. If you have the phrase Kitabu Zaidin, you can always visualize an imaginary off right next to the Musaf, and then it will become your translation tip. Okay, so you can always translate it like Kitabu of Zaidin. Okay, similarly Bait of Allah, similarly Rab of Alameen. All right, that's how you can do it. So just visualize an off right next to your Musaf and you will be good to go with the translations, inshallah. Okay, and the final point is something that we have already studied numerous times, and it says that the Musaf is going to be considered marfa if its Musaf ilayh is marfa. Okay, so this is one of those 7 criteria for an ism to be marfa that we have studied numerous times, really. Okay, so so a Musaf is going to be considered marfa if the Musaf ilayh is also marfa due to any reason, and there were 7 reasons for that. I hope you remember them. All right, next we studied and we also studied some complex musafilas over here. Okay, and what I mean by the complex musafilas is that there is going to be multiple musafs and musafilas. All right, and for example, instead of kitabu zaidin, I could say kitabu abi zaidin. Okay, so the word abi is going to be the musaf ilayh for kitabu. Okay, and the word abi is also going to be a musaf for the word zaidin, which is going to be its musaf ilayh. Okay, so these were your complex musaf and musaf ilayhs. All right, I have made many worksheets related to these topics, and you can find them in the Facebook group. Okay, so if you want, you can join the group and access those worksheets. Okay, answers are of course given with them. All right, after the Musaf Musafile, we studied the adjectival clauses, or simply the Musaf Sifa. All right, what was that? Musaf Sifa is an adjectival clause. Okay, Musuf is the one that is being described, and Sifa is your adjective. All right, so adjective is a word that defines or describes an ism. So Sifa is adjective, and Musuf is the one that is being described. All right, and Musuf of course comes first, and Sifa comes after Musuf. All right, so this is in contrast to what we see in English. We see a good boy, for example, right? So the adjective is coming before the one that is being described. However, this gets flipped in Arabic. Okay, so the masuf comes first, followed by your sifa. All right, and that's what I say here, that it is always after its masuf. Sifa is always after its masuf. So, waladun salihun. Okay, pious, pious boy, a pious boy. All right. Okay, then I said that the sifa can be one or more than one in number. For example, if I say lovely blue dress, so there are 2 adjectives defining this dress. It's of course lovely and it's blue in color. Okay, so this is what you need to know. And of course, we can see it from the phrase Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. There are 2 sifas for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, Rahman and Rahim. All right, then we see that they are usually together, but the Mawsuf and Sifa may be separated from each other as well. Okay, so what to do and how do you realize, how do you work it out that they are actually Mawsuf Sifa? this is the point, that sifa must always be identical to its mawsuf. This is a very important point, okay? Sifa must be identical to its mawsuf. So the sifa must be identical to its mawsuf, okay? And when we say identical, in terms of what? In terms of the four characteristics of an ism that we have discussed in section A, and we have also discussed in catch-up series. All right, so if you haven't yet watched those lessons about the characteristics of an ism, I would really urge you to go and watch those lessons before moving on to the next section, okay, so that inshallah you understand what's going on. Okay, so the sifa must be identical to the mawsuf in terms of the four characteristics of an ism, which include, first of all, i'rab, whether it's rafa nasab or jar, its grammatical gender, whether it's feminine or masculine, and its status, whether it is marfa or nakra, and then finally its number, whether it's wahid, musanna or jama. All right, so these were our mawsuf sifa pointers. Okay, then we did the ways to call out to someone. Now I'm going to revise them really briefly over here, because this is something that requires some in-depth explanation. All right, so you can of course go and watch the video that I did for this topic. Okay, but briefly I'm just going to say that there are three basic ways. Okay, first of all, you have the herf ya, okay, and you can use it in a number of ways. Okay, then you have wa. All right, now these three are used for showing some tragedy. So whenever there is some mourning or there is some tragedy that you need to associate the ism with, then you add wa. Okay, wa, and then you add the suffix of ha. Okay, ha with sakun. Or you could use them, you could only use this suffix of ha and ya zaidahu, or wa zaidahu. This is intense tragedy. Okay, ya zaida is once again tragedy, but up to a certain limit. Okay, all right, next we did, and first, second, and then the third one was this allahumma. All right, so this is actually this ma. Okay, this is once again attached only with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the word Allah. All right, so this is what it's only attached with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You cannot attach it with anything else to make it to call out to him. Okay, all right, now about ya. First of all, very briefly, if you are calling out to someone specific, you simply check off its tanween, ya khalidu, for example. Okay, it's isma alam. And similarly, if you're calling out to someone specific among the masses, you simply check off its tanween and it becomes light, ya rajulu. So there's some special or specific man that you're calling out to. Okay, ya rajulu. But if you're in a crowd and you're asking for help from anybody, literally, all right, so you just call out for help, anybody. Okay, so what do? You don't make it light and you keep it in nasab, so it becomes ya rajulan. All right, ya rajulan. It's any random person, any random man, please help me out, or whatever. Okay, ya rajulan. All right, next we need to know that if the person who we are calling out to, or the ism that we are calling out to, is a musaf. All right, for example, in rabbal alamin, what do? So basically we are calling out to rab. All right, so we need to make this nasab, as you can see here. So it's ya rabbal alamin, not ya rabbul alamin. Okay, it's ya rabbal alamin. We have to make the musaf as nasab. Okay, and you can observe this thing here as well. Ya rabbana. Okay, and this rabba is nasab and na is our pronoun. Okay, and of course this ya often gets omitted very conveniently. That's the reason you often say, you see Rabbana instead of Ya Rabbana. Okay, that's what. Okay, now the last thing is, second last thing is that if your munada, the one who's being called out to, is by the way called a munada. Okay, so the munada, if that munada is attached with al, okay, then you add ayyuha right after the ya. Okay, so you say ya ayyuhal kafiruna. So this ayyuha over here is present because of this al. All right, similarly, if your ism of your manada is feminine grammatically, then you add ya ayyatuhal. Okay, so ya ayyatuhan nafsu. This ayyatuha is there only because the word nafsun is grammatically feminine. That is it. All right, so now you know what ayyuha and ayyatuha are doing there. Okay, what's the reason of their usage? All right, now finally, these are used for showing request or showing surprise. Okay, and what you do is that after the ya, you attach the munada with lam. All right, that is it. All right, after that, we studied ism ishara. And ism ishara, as you can see, is the ism with which we can point towards an ism. Okay, and all right. So the words that are used for pointing towards an ism are, um, are present on the screen right in front of you. What you can do is you can pause the screen and just go through these words because you have already studied them before, and it would be just to fresh up your mind. Okay, so pause the screen and watch these once again. All right, now just a few tips before moving on. All the pointing nouns that point towards the things that are near, okay, they begin with h. Okay, and the ones that begin with sa, as you can see here, they are the ones that point towards something that is far away. Okay, and well, these are all similar, identical in fact. All right, so they're all mabni asma, the ones for all of these. Okay, jama, and similarly these are also mabni. All right, and you can see the classic musanna suffixes for these: hazani, hazaini, hazaini. Similarly, hatani. Now this the tells us that this is feminine. Okay, so hatani, hataini, hataini. All right. Okay. Next, we needed to do some finer points about ism ishara, and they are as follows. Okay. Now the musharun ilayh is the ism that gets pointed at. All right, and the ism ishara should be identical in terms of the ism characteristics to the musharun ilayh. All right, so first you analyze the musharun ilayh and then you match up the ism ishara according to the characteristics of that musharun ilayh. Okay, so for example, if you have al waladu and you want to point towards it, of course you're going to use the word haza. Okay, not hazihi or anything else, because haza is used to point towards an ism that is masculine grammatically. Okay, similarly, hazanil waladani, the two boys. Now this is two, so you're going to use hazani. This is rafa, so you're going to use the rafa pointing noun. Okay, this is masculine grammatically, so you're going to use the grammatically masculine pointing noun. Okay, and of course all the asma ishara are marfa by default, as you can see here. Okay, remember this. All right, similarly you can see I used hazihi for pointing towards bintu, hazihil bintu. Okay, all right. Now, how can you differentiate between a phrase and a sentence is something that we also studied here. Phrase is something that gives you an incomplete information. For example, this book. All right, so you're waiting for more information regarding this. And a sentence is the one that gives you complete information. For example, this is a book. The only difference between this and this is the presence of this auxiliary verb. This is a book. Okay, so how do you differentiate between them? I told you that if you find the musharun alayh attached with al, as you can see in this example, hazal kitabu. Okay, so if you see this, if you see the musharun alayh attached with al, it's going to be a phrase. Okay, this book. Similarly, zalikal kitabu, that book. Okay, and if you find your musharun alayh without any al, then you should know that it is a sentence. Okay, and you should imagine an auxiliary verb, an appropriate auxiliary verb, right next to the pointing noun. Okay, so haza kitabun means this is a book. Okay, I hope this is clear. We will practice these formations in more detail in the next section, inshallah. Okay, what did we do next? The next important point is that, of course, if the musharun ilay is jama mukassir, you are going to use a feminine singular ishara. Why? Because I hope you remember that all the jama mukassirs are considered to be feminine, grammatically feminine. Okay, and if it is a jama mukassir of an aqil ism, it can be dealt as both feminine as well as masculine. And if it is the jama mukassir of a ghair aqil ism, then it is going to be only dealt as grammatically feminine noun. Okay, as you can see here, the word qulub is ghair aqil. Okay, and that's why it can only be dealt as grammatically feminine, hence the tilka. The word rusul is the jama mukassir of the word rasulun, which is of course an aqil noun. So since it is jama mukassir, you can use it or you can deal it as grammatically feminine as well as masculine. All right, here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has used it as grammatically feminine, so tilka rusul. Remember, tilka is your feminine pointing noun. Okay, now two situations. If we want to point towards Musaf, all right, so this is your Musaf, Musaf alayh fragment, Kitabul Waladi, the book of the boy. So if you want to point towards the Musaf, you place your pointing noun at the end, or rather after the Musaf alayh. Okay, and if you want to point towards Musaf alayh, you are going to place this pointing noun before the Musaf alayh. Right, so remember the placement. Okay, if you want to point at Musaf alayh, it comes before Musaf alayh. And if you want to point towards the Musaf, then you're going to place the pointing noun after the Musaf alayh. Okay, so these were your points about the musharun alayh, ism ishara and musharun alayh. This was our last topic in this section, and it is the connecting nouns. Okay, first of all, what were connectors? They are the ones, or they're the words that fuse the additional detail with the main ism. Okay, and we have the words in English such as who, when, where, what, why. All right, so for example, the place where it originates from is far away. Now the main piece of information is that the place is far away. All right, but the additional information that has been fused with this main information is where it originates from. All right, and the word that facilitated us with this fusion is where. Okay, so these are the connecting nouns. All right, and in English, of course, we have words that are non-WH words such as that. Okay, and that is used for the asma that are ghair aqil, of course, right? The book, and I gave this example in my lesson as well, the book who changed my life, that is wrong. All right, because you use who for an ism that is aqil, all right, and you use that for an ism that is ghair aqil, right? So that's what you need to take care of in Arabic as well. All right, now in Arabic we had two kinds of connecting nouns. They can either be the special connectors, all right, and they're called the allazi words. okay? Or they could be the common connectors, such as man, which means who, haisu, which means where, ma, which means what, is, which means when, okay? And usually they are translated as whoever, whatever, wherever, whenever. So a subtle stress is present in these words, okay? So that's what you need to know. And now I would want you to just pause the screen and revise these allazi words again, which you can see. First it is um, the masculine and singular, all right, and then you proceed to musanna and then jama. Okay, so allazi, 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 allati, allati, allati. Once again, mabni, mabni. All right, then allazani, allazaini, allazaini, allatani, allataini, allataini. Okay, classical, your classic musanna suffixes are present over here. Okay, the masculine version has sal and the feminine version has ta. Okay, and then jama is allazina, 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 both for rafa, nasab and jar, hence mabni. And for feminine jama, there's going to be allati or allai. Once again, mabni, mabni. Okay, quite easy really. Now I hope that you've memorized all these words because they are going to come in handy. Okay, all right, now we are going to begin our self-assessment, all right, but not in this video. We're going to form a new video for this because it has become quite long. Okay, so in the next lesson, or rather in the next part of this same lesson, we are going to begin our self-assessment of some ayahs of Surah Al-Waqi'ah, inshallah. Okay, till that time, barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al-Hakim. Allah Hafiz.